Okay, we're back with Bill at High Tech Motorsport and me, Bart, 763-712-9088. I'll stop saying the phone number. We keep bouncing back and forth. We got Bill on this little 350 motor out of that white little pickup truck that was wounded. We got Casey on the dyno with a rock crawler. I got Chris working on a donk that's got more stuff wrong than ever should happen to a car. And John is working on that 632 big block green Camaro, trying to figure out where the hell overdrive went. So that's the way things are going around here. So we're going to show you. Bill pulled the rod apart. He thinks he's got the problem. We got everything else apart here. You can see how nice and shiny it is.
Well, these ones didn't look right.
This one did not come apart. Ooh. So he's going to wipe.
I'm going to drop it on the floor and we're going to look at it.
He's the best, isn't he, folks? Best in the business.
That's right.
So here you go.
Pay me the big bucks, right?
We knew it wounded something.
Yeah.
See the bearing? You see across how there's nothing left of it? You can take your fingernail like an old-fashioned record for those of us that...
Another one that's not so bad.
Yeah, we'll compare it side by side here, but if you can see this, you can see how the bearing is supposed to be nice and shiny and flat. This one's got a whole bunch of crap that went through it and locked up on the rod.
I don't know if that'll show. I mean, they're all worn.
They're all worn out for a motor that was supposed to be fresh, and that comes under the not really. When you listen to a customer, you get exactly what you deserve. There's the other half all beat up. You can feel on the crank right here, when you can feel it in your fingernail, the crank is junk and got to be taken care of. So Bill's going to pull the other one off and see if that's bad too, which usually when one goes, the one next to it is shitty too. It may have mains bad too because it really lost a lot of power. We'll see. That one's stuck. There we go. See how you use a soft hammer to pound on the rod so we don't have anything broken any more than it already is. Uh-oh. That one's spun. See the heat? See the black heat? That's from a rod bearing that spins. Color is, hope you can see that there, it's black.
Oh yeah, the crank's got a huge groove in it.
Yep, and there you go. And that's why this thing dropped a shitload of power and wasn't working. Now we're going to take everything apart, obviously the main, just getting an all new forged crank, but at least we found the reason why, at least part of it, why it's screwed up. And that's just from listening to customers that say they know what they're doing and that the motor's fresh.
Crank's garbage.
Yeah, crank is junk. Big hole, big groove, no good. So we'll take it out the rest of the way, take some pictures. You can see the pistons go out from the bottom to the top. Usually there's a little groove on the top. Those are standard pistons, right, Bill? They're not 30 overs, are they?
No, I didn't even look.
You should probably look to see if they're standards or whatever.
We'll have to look up the part number. I don't think the stock
probably
piston.
Be a -30.
It's a stock piston. It's a GM piston. I just don't know.
So anyway, that's what you get when you get something that they say is in great shape, and then you make a bunch of power with it, and poop hits the fan. That's all there is to it. Okay, everybody, Bart at High Tech Motorsport. It's a Thursday. It's light outside, so that must mean it's a day to work. We're in the High Tech Motorsport assembly, engine assembly room right here. Bill is behind me. Wait, Bill. There we go. We're doing a 383 stroker small block Chevy, and all that really is a 30 over. It's a 4.030 bore and a 3.750 stroke. We wanted to walk you through this so you can go back and look at this so you can do your own assembly of a 350 or 383. It's not that difficult. It's just time consuming, and you got to be careful. It's got to be clean. You'll notice the high-tech room here is triple lighted. These are all LEDs, so we're doing our best to make sure America's okay, and then we're building big blocks that make like 1,000 horsepower and get shitty gas mileage. So I'm kind of taking some, giving back some. I mean, we're doing the best we can here. So I'm gonna have Bill walk you through what we've done with the blocks so far. We've done some basic stuff to it, and that's machine shop stuff. We just didn't record that. We figured that most people don't have their own machine shop. So you're gonna end up having to have that done at your local machine shop place, or if you just wanna do a quickie hone, that's totally up to you with what goes on. Now everything we're using today is all Manley rotating assembly with a 6.0 rod and a 4.030 bore. Pretty basic stuff, nice stuff, good for up to 800 horsepower type stuff, and this one's gonna be making about 500, so it's not that big a deal. Anyway, Bill's gonna walk you through the stuff with the block. So Bill, what have you done with the block so far?
Well, this is kind of the sequel to the previous video we did where we tore it all down and we found the crank was hurt pretty bad. The rod journals were hurt. So the whole thing came down, got completely stripped down, everything, all the pipe plugs, all the oil galley plugs, everything just down to a bare block. So then the thing took, and we got bored and honed, torque plate bored and honed, which is very important. Minimum cut on the deck height, just to clean the deck surface up, make sure that's all nice and clean, no rust, no corrosion. Nice flat mating surface for the cylinder heads to bolt down onto. Then lifter bores honed also. Then, since it is a stroker motor, we have to stroker clearance all small block Chevy blocks, especially when you're using an H-beam type's connecting rod. So the cap down here is rather large, and with a long stroke crank, you get into fitment issues where the rod wants to swing around and hit the block. So you can see where the block is all laid back to clearance the stroke.
Now you guys will notice, just like on an airplane, you'll never see a rectangular or square surface with a corner that cracks. So when Bill does this, he gets in here and grinds this back and leaves a nice smooth surface so there's no place for a crack to start to develop. It's time consuming, but it works out in the long run. Now remember, we build everything for a lot more power than what it really needs to be, because that way my customers abuse the crap out of it, which is what they all do.
That's what they're built for.
Yep, so this is all the best stuff. Let's see, okay, so you see the frost plugs are out, no frost plugs. This is a roller block. This is the one I use all the time. It's a 96 to 2000 truck motor. It has roller lifters and little spiders that hold them in place. That way you don't have problems with cams going flat. You can see across the surface how nice and flat, well, I can't see flat, but it's nice and clean. And Bill does the final wash on this after it goes through our jet wash. We use
washed 10 times. Very, very clean. Has to be clean. The biggest thing on throwing one of these together is clean. Yeah. Always clean.
Right.
No dust, no hair, no lint-free rags, everything. When you're doing it, just clean.
Right. And we actually use Dawn dishwashing detergent at the very end with some brushes, which I've got right here.
Dawn dish soap, great degreaser.
Yeah.
Run brushes through every oil galley, every bore, anywhere you can get into. Make sure that there's no material left from all the machine work.
Right. And then you use just hot water afterwards and a light. What are we using for those lint-free rags or whatever? What do we got for wiping the bores down?
I've just been using these ones here. This
okay.
is a good old Home Depot special, lint-free rags.
There you go. The idea is you want nothing in the galleys. You want everything to be clean. You can see High Tech Motorsports got this enclosed room with a door. Everything for the heat and the air conditioning on one end is over there. So when he's stuck over here, you don't get a lot of dust travel everywhere. You get a little bit, but you do the best you can. Once again, with these triple lights here, we don't get any shadows. So when he starts to check all the clearances, he can see. He doesn't have to worry about trying to get good light on stuff because there's lots of light in here. So let's look at the parts that we've chosen for this thing, Bill.
All right, so obviously the main caps are off the block because we're getting ready for assembly. Again, clean. Everything has to be very clean. Some of the stuff here is dirty because it still has the rust inhibitors on it. We just took it all out of the packaging. Anyways, so we're doing new main studs. It is a 2-bolt block, not a concern. Good quality main studs will hold the thing down. Good Clevite narrowed bearings for the crank that we have over here. We'll get to that, I guess. Manly, like we said, Manly forged H-beam rods. Good ARP rod bolts.
Okay, so the reason we chose this, of course I love Manly stuff, but the longer rod, this is a 6.0 rod. Most of the 383s come with a 5.7, which gives you a little bit bigger, little taller piston, a little more weight hanging off the end. I like the 6.0 rods because it shortens up the piston pin height a little bit and lightens up the piston so it'll spool up faster.
Yep, you get the longer rod, you get a little bit better rod to stroke ratio and everything's happier.
Yep.
So then that goes along with the pistons then. Obviously, again, Manly forged piston. I can't remember the CC on
they're -4.
Okay, -4. But like Bart was talking about, now we have a longer rod, so that raised the wrist pin height. So you can see the wrist pin gets up in there into the oil control ring groove. So these pistons, you use a support rail that kind of bridges that gap for your oil ring. And
so don't panic, everybody. We're just doing the overview now, and then as Bill does the individual, because he's got to cut the rings individually to the bores.
Yeah, it's just a quick overview of all the parts.
Now you've heard the term full floater before, or pin fit. Pull that out, Bill. Okay, so full floater goes into the rod. You better go into the rod. Bill, help me, it's stuck. That's just me. So you can see that.
These have all been clearance.
Yep, so they're all...
It's just dry. There's no lube on any of this
For
stuff.
God's sakes, don't even know this many people. What the hell? That's my wife. Anyway, so that's a full floater, and that's all we use here. We don't use any pressed-in pins. If it's a press-in pin, you've got to heat up the end of the rod, slide it in with the piston, and hope like hell you get it right. Otherwise, you get problems. That's the cheap way to go. Yeah. These are all forged. This is a 2618 alloy. It grows a little bit more than the 4312 or 43 something or other.
Yeah, I don't even know.
Whatever it is.
It's a high expansion.
No, 4032.
Yeah, there you go.
4032 is the higher silicon content, low expansion. We're using the 2618 here just because...
Better quality?
Yeah, I want to. Just because it's... So all these grooves, you can see the rings are laid out.
Yep, you got top groove, second groove, oil control rings, and the support rails.
And then as we're going to do this, what's going to happen is Bill's going to cut the rings and use our ring grinder, and we'll do them one at a time so you can see how they fit and how he fits the pistons in. But first, he's got to take a look. Here's the crank. Here's the roller lifters. Everything is laid out. He's going to do a final cleanup. We want to show you guys everything. There's a spider for the lifters to hold them in place, along with these little ring deals here.
Dog bones. I call them dog bones.
Okay. So on the push rods, they get a final cleaning. Everything gets a final clean. This is
high volume oil pump.
Yep, HV oil pump, new pickup, hardened drive, cam retainer plate, new timing chain. These are all your frost plugs right here, and your little cup plugs that make me crazy.
What keeps all the fluids inside of you?
Yeah, I hate those frickin' things. Anyway, so these are the ARP upgraded rod bolts here. Manley comes with those. And that's where we're going to start. Now he's going to take and lay back now, do final touch up clean, and you're going to do the crank, check the crank for clearances now?
Yep, I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to put the main caps on it and start measuring the clearances that we have on the block to the crankshaft. So.
Okay, so I'm going to leave this with Bill so he can take and start doing some miking, or if he needs me to help hold the camera, I will. But it's kind of fun when you get down to it. Those little telescoping gauges and everything else. And you don't have to do it this way. It just lets you know where you're at exactly. And of course, when we're building something, we expect our customers to abuse the crap out of it. And if there's a problem, it's because they just screwed it up. But
yep, we're holding the tight tolerances so they live a long and happy life.
Yep. So there you go. And we're going to sign off. Let Bill start doing his starting to check the dimensions on everything. Make sure the clearances are right.
Right.
Write them all down in his book, and then we put them on everything from High Tech Motorsport. When you get a invoice from us, lists not only the part numbers but what the clearances are, the camshaft specs, everything else that goes with it. So someday in 10 years, if you want to duplicate the motor, or one of your buddies wants it, you can just duplicate what we did.
Complete build sheet.
Complete build sheet. That is correct. A little different than most places. But we're going to do this in segments. It's going to end up being probably 40 minutes, so it'll be 4 10s or 3 15s plus something. Anyway, we want you to be able to go back and reference this as a reference, because there's not a lot of guys that are building quality engines. There's some good ones, don't get me wrong. Ray Martin, don't be mad at me, you're really good. So just want to make sure you guys are all informed and you're doing the right thing. If nothing else, you can figure out if your engine builder knows what the hell he's talking about. Hey, we're going to sign off now and let Bill get to work, and we'll keep making video.
All right, we're back here. I stole the camera from Bart. He's tied up with phone calls and stuff at the moment, but I just wanted to show everyone here that a couple things with the bearings. You'll see we got the block all studded now, and with the bearings, there's absolutely an upper and a lower bearing half on the mains and on the rods. The lower bearings are really easy to identify. They have the you'll see they're grooved, and they have the oiling holes where the oil gets fed to the crankshaft. And another way to tell, I don't know if I can get this on the camera here, it says lower right on it. So you know the lower would be the cap side, and the upper would be the bearing half that goes into the block. And then another thing quick I wanted to show everyone. Let me grab my mallet. When you go to set these caps on, you'll see, oh boy, it's hard to focus this. The caps have to register. There's a register on the block and on the cap. When you set those on there, they don't, if it just flops in there loosey-goosey, that's no good. That's a bad main cap. So, and you don't want to just put the nuts on it and then just crank them down, because chances are you'll get that cap cocked and then you're going to ruin the register in the block. So I just take a rubber mallet and you just lightly tap them down. Now the caps are nice, centered up, registered, and you don't have to worry about hurting anything. So now we'll get the ARP assembly lube on the studs and the nuts and the washers, and we'll get these torqued down, and then we'll start to measure everything up, and we'll see where everything's at. Hopefully everything mics out good and we don't have to start changing a bunch of bearing halves around. So we'll be back in a second. Small block Chevy, guys. Pipe plug, rear main cap, ball bearing goes right down in this hole. Drive it in. You seat it in with like a drift punch or whatever, and that enables your oil filter to actually work. You know, this is the oil filter adapter hole, and without that pipe plug in there, the oil just bypasses right past the oil filter, and your oil filter does nothing. Make sure you get that in there.
We're going to show you how to measure up the crank for the clearances, and that way you can make sure that the thing doesn't stick or that the holes are too big. So here we go. Where do you want to start, Bill?
Well, got my micrometer, so I'm going to find the first journal on the crank, and I'm going to measure away from the holes. You don't want to be anywhere near those. So stick my micrometer on here, and it's kind of just a finesse, you know, getting used to using a micrometer takes some work for people that have never used one before. Let's just touch.
It also has a spring-loaded clicker on the back, so you can't get carried away.
Yeah, but you can't over-tighten it. Alright, so it's a good touch there.
Alright.
Put it in the stand quick. So then I take my dial bore gauge and zero it to my measurement that I just took off the crank.
And the reason that you're zeroing it is? Bill doesn't know.
I don't really know.
The reason you zero it up is because you're going to measure the opposing bore for the
No, yeah,
crank.
no, yeah. We're measuring the diameter of the crank now, and then we're going to measure
where the bearings are.
Inside diameter of the block and the bearing housing.
And if you do it right, there should be like 2.5 thousandths clearance. If you do it wrong, it's
we're shooting for about 2 1/4, 2.5. I believe would be a good.
So 2.5 is about right, but 2 1/4 to 250 is, Jesus.
No less than. No, 1 is too tight. 1/1000 is too tight. 3.5 thou is too loose.
Remember the bigger the. See, it's being zeroed in right there. You just spin it around. Now you can get these things from Harbor Freight all over the place. They're just kind of fun to play with, impress your friends. Everybody should have a dial bore gauge and micrometer, and see those big words, and you too can be an engine builder.
All right, it's right at 0.
All right, there we go. Zero it out. Okay.
So then we'll shove it in the block.
Okay. Go back over his shoulder here. All right, so here we go.
Then you rock it back and forth in the bore here, and your lowest it popped out. Your lowest number is going to be your measurement.
So it looks like 2 1/4.
It's actually, yeah, 2 thou 3/10, just a little over. So we're right perfect on that.
Yep. So he's doing it to the vertical side here.
Yeah, you always measure vertically up and down. You don't want to measure side to side. You can actually measure that as well and it should be about a thou and a half greater. So that's just about 3 there.
Football shape. Football shape.
And well, we already measured the caps. The caps are round, but there's eccentricity. There's eccentricity built into the bearings to help the oil film skip a little gap in the parting line. So
there you go. So you're going to do this now another...
right down the line, we'll have to go through and measure each journal on the crank, each journal on the block, and document it all, and write it all down.
And if they don't come out correctly, what do you do?
Well, we can start playing with different bearings. If it's too tight, we're going to run a looser bearing. If it's too loose, run a tighter bearing.
Remember,
you can actually split halves. If you want to get somewhere in the middle, you can run 2 different size bearings. It's not ideal, but it's doable.
Remember, everybody, we're only dealing with thousandths of an inch.
Right.
So you're not dealing with like an extra foot or something like that. And this isn't.
Yeah,
we're not using.
2/1000 of an inch is what's a sheet of paper? 20 thou thick.
Got the wrong guy to ask, dude.
I think a sheet of paper is like 20 thou thick, so it's
toilet paper. I know what toilet paper thickness is.
yeah, that's very good.
Yep, that's it. So anyway, he's going to do that 5 more times. Then we're going to put the crank into place, and he's going to start that process. Then later on today, we're going to start mounting up the cutting the rings and mount the pistons on the rods. Putting those all together. Got to measure the rods too on the crank.
It's the same but opposite on the connecting rods. You just measure the journal, and then you measure the rod journal versus the inside diameter of a torqued cap with the bearing in it.
And there you go. It just takes a long time to get it right, and this is only because we're worried about the townships, because it's all about the oil film that keeps these things from seizing up.
Yep, you can't take the manufacturer's word for it that it's all right. Sometimes you get lucky and it's good out of the box. Sometimes the rods have to be honed, or the block has to be honed, or there's ways to fix it.
Right, so there you go. That's all that stuff you don't want to do, and those guys that want to throw it together, and those are usually the guys doing like roundy pounder stuff on dirt tracks.
Don't just throw it together out of the box.
Yeah, don't just do that. You have to actually do some measuring to make sure that your ride lives, right?
Yeah, well, that's the goal.
All right, slow and steady. Okay, we'll be back.